everybody, this is Andy here from Retro Gamer 623, and as you can see right here, I've got a box. Now I know what's inside here, but I haven't opened it yet. As you can see, I haven't opened it. I'm really excited to open this. This is something that I've been waiting for a while. It's a piece to add to my retro gaming collection. It's a console that I've never had before, and that console is the Sega Dreamcast. Now, there's a long story that goes into why I never had a Dreamcast before, and I figured I'd tell it, but not like this. I was going to tell it in a different way, so let's tell that story right now. My very first console was the NES. Of course, I had friends who had a ColecoVision and friends who had an Atari 2600 that I played when at their house on rainy days. And yes, my dad did bring home a Commodore VIC-20 for the whole family, but my very first console given to me specifically was the NES. This was back in 1990 when the NES was in its heyday. Sure, it had competition from the Sega Master System, but to be honest, the only reason I knew about the Master System back then was because I had a friend who had one. That's right, one friend. Everyone else I knew had an NES, or as we all simply called it, a Nintendo. I believe it was Christmas of 1993 when I received the 16-bit Super Nintendo, which to me is arguably one of the best consoles ever. Of course, you can't mention the SNES without paying tribute to the Genesis. No, not the band, the console. There we go. Again, in the 16-bit era around here, most of my friends had the SNES. One friend had both, and another had just the Genesis. Every now and then I would trade my Super Nintendo with my Genesis owning friend, just so that the both of us could get a taste as to what the other was missing out on. In my humble opinion, I really wasn't missing out on much. I didn't care about blast processing, nor did I believe the whole Genesis does what Nintendo don't hype. But that's a different story for a different day. The next console I got was the N64. I looked past the PS1 because, like a lot of people, my thoughts were, Sony? They make TVs, not video game consoles. And of course, the Saturn was out, but again, Sega, right? I really like the N64, and there are a few games on that system that I still think stand out today, such as the often mentioned GoldenEye, as well as Rare's follow-up to that hit, the less mentioned but vastly superior Perfect Dark. There are a lot more I can mention, but again, different story, different day. When I found out that Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix, had moved away from Nintendo and were making Final Fantasy VII for the PS1, that was when I gave that system a bit more of my attention. I was a huge fan of the Final Fantasy series, and if they were about to become exclusive to the PlayStation, well then I had to act on that, so I picked up a PlayStation. This was another fantastic console, and I was a bit angry at myself for being a Nintendo fanboy and disregarding the PlayStation altogether. In 1999, the Dreamcast was released, and I had read a lot of hype about the machine, but I just scoffed at it. I really didn't like the Genesis, I didn't like the Sega CD or the 32X, both of which I only got to try once each at the house of a friend. I didn't care for the Saturn because at the time of the Saturn I was still a firm believer in Nintendo and their cartridge theory, and so I ignored the hype about the Dreamcast. Sure, they had some catchy "It's thinking" commercials, but who cares? The next system I picked up was the PlayStation 2. It was a no-brainer considering I could use it to watch DVDs and enjoy PS2 titles and still play my meager back catalog of PS1 games. I had no interest in picking up the Nintendo GameCube until I read about Metroid Prime. The day that game was released was the day I picked up the GameCube, and let me tell you, that game did not disappoint. Also during this time, I happened upon the Panasonic 3DO at a used video game store. The guy clearly wanted to be rid of it, so I picked up the console and 12 games for it for a measly $100. The console worked, it was different, I played it a bit, but unfortunately it wound up in storage, and some years later the box it was in was tossed into the trash, by mistake, allegedly, and not by me. I'm still pissed off about that one. I'd love to have that console back again right now for my collection. Anyway, when the Xbox came out, I avoided it like the plague. Again, I only knew a couple people who had one, and I had no interest in it at all.
For the 7th generation, I started out with the Wii because of a little game called Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, and because I was interested to see how the Wiimote worked. Soon after getting the Wii, I decided I should give a Microsoft console a try, so I bought the Xbox 360. I liked it, especially after I finally upgraded to a flat panel HD TV. The PS3 came out and I wanted to get one, but I couldn't justify the $600 price tag, so I waited for a few years before picking that one up. It was the first time that I had actually ever owned every current generation console. That's right, I had the PS Wii 60. Of course, the PS3 took the place as my main console. My Wii was used second most, and the Xbox became, and still is, a big paperweight. Of the 8th generation consoles, I own the Wii U and the PS4, neither of which see very much action. I'm still on the PS3 every day, but not really for playing games, more for media streaming. I should also point out that while I never gave a timeline for handhelds, I have owned at one point in time each of the following: Game Boy, Game Gear, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, PlayStation Portable, DS, DS Lite, DSi, XL, 3DS, and PlayStation Vita. So now, since I have a lot of spare time and nothing to do with it, I find myself trying to collect these old systems and games from yesteryear, with the meager income that I have. And that brings us to this video, where I finally get my hands on a Dreamcast.
This is something 15 years too late, right? It was something that I wanted to check out years ago, but I didn't know anybody that had one. Winds up the person that I did know that had one, he wasn't using it. So he said, you know what, I know you're on hard times, I know you're trying to start a collection, I know you're trying to find things to do, here you go. And he asked me, because I told him I was going to make a YouTube video about unboxing and whatnot, he asked me not to mention his name, he doesn't want to be mentioned, but to him I say thank you very much. I don't ask for things for free, and I know this is like the first video that I'll be posting on the Retro Gamer 63 channel, and I just want it pointed out there that I do not ask for things for free. I don't have much money to go out and acquire things, so that's why price for me is very, very important. But let's get to it. Let's get to it. Trusty knife here, and slit there, and do an ever so gentle cut down the middle, and here we go. We got some air bubbles. We have some games: Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, Sonic Adventure, and Street Fighter Alpha 3. I haven't played a Street Fighter game in years. Now we got this must be the memory card, the VMU for the Dreamcast. Basically, like the PlayStation and PlayStation 2 and those consoles at the time, and the N64 and whatnot, this is the memory card. And it's got a little screen on it. Apparently for some games you can see information, and some games, I think like the Sonic Adventure game, I believe if I remember correctly, it uploads a little mini game you can play on the VMU. We got the power cable and the AV cables. Here we have the Dreamcast controller. That's a different feeling controller. We've got a second controller. These controllers are pretty neat. Most controllers, the cables come out the top. These ones, they come out the bottom here. But a neat looking controller. It looks big and clunky, but it actually feels really nice. The Dreamcast. There it is. I was kind of hoping that maybe he'd had the one, like he wound up getting one of the hard to find broadband adapters, but it's not. It's the regular 56K dial-up modem. Oh, and my prayers have just been answered. I'd asked him if he knew what version it was, like whether it was, because the thing with the Sega Dreamcast is it can play burned games. And that was the biggest, most appealing thing for me to get this is the fact that it could play burned games. The thing is only certain versions could play burned games, and I know you can't see it here, but along the bottom here where, you know, it says NTSC-U and whatnot, just before it says NTSC, there's a number in there that's circled. And if you have a 0 or a 1, it will play burned games. If yours has a 2, then you're out of luck. It won't play burned games. This one is a 1. So that is awesome. I know a lot of people don't like the thought of piracy and whatnot, but the way I look at it with the Dreamcast is Sega doesn't see any money from this. Neither do the software developers. They won't see any money from any of the software. So I really don't see what the harm is. I'm going to set it up and we'll try it out. Alright? So let's do that right now. Alright, so as you can see, we have it hooked up to the old-fashioned TV, the old CRT style. This is my little classic gaming area, but I'll get into that in another video. As you can see, I have it set up next to the old Sega Master System. Those are the only 2 Sega systems I have right now, aside from the Super Retro Trio, which plays Sega Genesis games. So anyway, but that's not what this is about. This is about the Dreamcast. So you'll have to excuse the shaky camera work here, because I'm working without a tripod. But here it is, Dreamcast hooked up to the TV. Now let's go ahead and we'll load up Sonic Adventure. Just to make sure that it works, click the power, and so far so good, right? I think that's what's supposed to happen. Oh, I just saw myself on the TV screen. Hello! Yep, I'd say that's working. Alright, perfect. So let's try. Put that one back here. Back in the case. And I have here, I went ahead and burnt a copy of Resident Evil 3. This is one of my favorite games from the PlayStation. And I was happy to see that they had it on the Dreamcast. So, will this play burnt discs? Now we all know this is what's supposed to happen. Fingers crossed. I think that's a good sign. As we all hold our breath. There it is. There it is. Hit the start button. So there we go. Sega Dreamcast. Working well. Oh, hi there. I was just playing a game here. So yeah, I've had the Dreamcast for a few days now, and I'm really enjoying it. Can't believe it's taken me 15 years to try one out. The controller is extremely comfortable in my hands, I find. I often forget to look into the screen of the VMU. I mean, as you can tell right now, I'm playing Sonic Adventure, so nothing really important pops up on here. But when I have been playing Resident Evil and whatnot, your life meter is displayed on here, and there are times where I've forgotten to look in it. But it really is a neat thing to have. So all in all, I would definitely say you should probably try and get one of these if you can. I know they're not too expensive. Again, I thank you know who you are for giving me this. I'm keeping my promise. I'm not mentioning your name, but thank you very much if you're watching this, which I assume you are. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for more videos here on Retro Gamer 623. Got a few other things that I'm working on. You know, subscribe to us if you like the video if you like, because that helps as well. Like Adam Korlick says, keep on dreaming, or keep dreaming. That's what it is. Keep dreaming. Thank you, Adam Korlick, for what you do, because I can honestly say if it wasn't for your videos, I probably wouldn't even be doing this myself. So thank you, Adam Korlick. You know, I don't know you, you don't know me, but thank you for doing what you do. Thank you.